Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another one of NSA's online webinars. And we'll just give it a minute or two to allow all attendees that have registered to log in and sign up in case anyone's having any problems with their internet or registration or login. I can see numbers are increasing rapidly, which is good. Hopefully you've all been enjoying the 2-day online event so far, and you've learnt lots from all the other speakers and the other webinars that have taken place. This is our last one for the 2-day event. So hopefully, again, you'll get some useful insights out of tonight's webinar as well. So just a little quick overview. My name's Nicola Noble. I work as the Policy and Technical Officer here at NSA. And this evening's webinar that you're joined into is the current wool market situation and British Wool's consumer-focused marketing strategy. And it's sponsored by British Wool. So again, thank you all for joining us, and we hope you'll find this session enjoyable and you'll get a lot out of it. Just a reminder, the webinar is open to everyone, not just NSA members, and I'd like to remind all non-members that NSA is a membership organisation and we're highly dependent on our membership as a source of income and for us to continue to do our work. Just a little bit of housekeeping as well. If you have any questions throughout the session, please can you post them in the Q&A facility at the bottom of your screens. Just allows easier access for us to monitor questions. The chat function is open, so if you want to use this for general chit chat, that's absolutely fine, but just be aware that if you post a question here, it might get missed. So please try and use that Q&A facility. And just a gentle reminder as well, we are recording this webinar for future viewings. So if you missed it or you want to rewatch it, then it will be available on our NSA website after the presentation tonight. So great, I'll hand over to Laura Johnson now from British Wool, and she'll chair the session. Thanks, Laura.
Brilliant. So thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Just quickly before I hand over to Graham Clark, who will be presenting this evening, I'm just going to give you a bit of a background about British Wool. I'm sure most of you will know what we do, but if not, we're a farmers cooperative and we're established in 1950. We currently represent around 35,000 sheep farmers across the UK and handle approximately 85% of the wool produced in the mainland UK. We work on behalf of producers to maximise the returns received for their wool. We collect, sort, and grade, sell at regular. We also work downstream to try and increase the end demand for British wool. Our farming cooperative have elected regional farmers. A few tiny questions, like Nicola has said, into the Q&A. Best to answer some of those as Graham goes through his presentation, or we can pause the presentation to answer some of those, and if not, we'll get to as many questions as possible at the end. So I shall now hand over to Graham Clark, who will be...
Okay, thanks Laura. Evening everybody, thanks for joining us for this session. So as Nicola said, I'll be looking at the current wool market situation and also British Wool's consumer-focused marketing strategy that we started implementing about 3 years ago. So in terms of the current wool market, so you've probably seen a lot of this in the press. We've had a lot of press coverage on this over the past few months. I think personally we find ourselves in what is by far the most difficult situation, certainly in our 70-year history of British Wool. I think the global economy appears to be at risk of entering another Great Depression, particularly in the UK. Where there's no sign of any growth moving forward for the next few years. I think global prices for all wool has halved since this time last year, not just British wool, and I'll show you that in a moment. It's all global wools. This has also been on a downward trend for decades, with the current downward cycle starting in 2012. This all started really with synthetics coming onto the market, and then various things have happened, and then the price has gone just really in one way, really. So this has affected all of our markets, both geographically and also by product type. And what this means is that current prices, there's very little value in the wool for producers for the majority of the types of wool that we take from producers, which is not a great position. So this is where you can see really how COVID's affected wool prices. So this goes back to 2016, and these are our auction prices up until our last auction, which was yesterday morning. You can see during 2019, the prices had started to soften, and that was really down to additional tariffs that were placed on Chinese imports into the US market. So this had affected things like contract carpets, so carpets going into hotels, casinos, airports, etc. And then really when we hit January, when COVID hit the Chinese market, we saw that quite early in terms of the lack of demand coming from China. And then obviously when we all went into lockdown for March time, and when COVID really started to hit, really the global market was closed for British wool between February and May. And that coincides with what is our busiest selling period. So it couldn't really have happened at a worse time. As I said earlier, this has affected or severely affected all global wool prices, not just British wool. And that includes our closest comparable wool type in New Zealand wool. So you can see from the top graph, the Australian prices and the South African prices, predominantly merino wool that goes into the finer wool that goes into apparel. Again, they've had the same problem. Their prices have dropped by approximately 50% as well. And then if you look at the New Zealand auction prices, well, they've had a big drop since the lockdown. They actually had a 3-month period where they weren't actually selling any wool, but their prices really have mirrored our prices. And we're always closely tied to New Zealand wool prices because the two can be used interchangeably really in many products. New Zealand have got a lot more wool than British wool. They've probably got about 4 times more wool than we have. So their overhang in brokers and farm sheds is probably in the region of 25 million kilos. In addition to that, there's also excess stock of wool from other origins, so European, Middle Eastern, etc. So there's a heck of a lot of wool on the market at the moment, and there's a massive oversupply. And this is particularly acute on carpet types of wool, where the demand has been very flat and soft for the past 6 months, but that wool is still on the marketplace. In terms of the demand, so prices, as I've already mentioned, are severely depressed at the moment. However, one slight positive is that volumes are slowly recovering. So you can see from the graph, we went into lockdown March time, but from February to May, we were selling very, very little wool. And then from June, it started to pick up. And actually in October, we've sold more wool than we've sold since the start of the year, which is good, which is great, because we had a overhang of stock from last season of 11 million kilos at the end of the financial year, which is a heck of a lot of stock. Normally we'd have about 3 million kilos. We've managed to reduce that to 1 million kilos. And we've done that through having a remote auction system. So all the way through the lockdown, we've managed to sell wool for the limited demand there was for the UK market. But what that's allowed us to do is get that stock overhang down to a lot more manageable level than it would have been if we hadn't done that. Most of last season's wool, of which we've got 1 million kilos left, is mountain and hill wool, which are predominantly carpet types. This has seen extremely soft demand during this period, as I said, and I'll go on to explain why that is in a moment. I think it's fair to say the outlook on demand is extremely uncertain and also highly likely to change. You can see how things are changing on a daily basis with everybody moving into the different tiers, the Welsh 2-week lockdown. This all affects consumer confidence and it all affects consumer purchasing spend and buying patterns as well. And this has a knock-on effect to our wool demand as well. There's certain markets where a lot of British wool, such as contract markets. So this is carpets that go into cruise ships, casinos, airports, and hotels. This is massively depressed, and that is going to take some time to recover. You can imagine there's not many cruise ships putting carpets in at the moment, and it is a significant market for British wool. And this is the reason there's so much wool carpet on the market at the moment, because really that market has just collapsed. The one positive thing is the UK residential carpet market. So since retailers opened mid-June, they've seen increases like for like from last year between 10 and 20%. Whether this is sustainable or not, no one's sure at the moment. We think it might be just pent-up demand, and also consumers have not been going on holiday, so they've got that extra money to spend, and they're spending it on doing a house up and home improvements. And I think at the moment it's impossible to say anyone with any level of certainty what the forecast is going to be moving forward. It's a very, very uncertain market that we're dealing with at the moment, not just for British wool, but for many products globally. So that's an overview of the market, and just, you know, it's not a great picture, to be fair, but that's the reality of it. That's where we're at the moment. I don't know, has there any questions come through on the market at the moment, or does anybody want to ask any questions? No?
No, there's none.
Nothing then, okay. So I'll move on to our consumer sales and marketing strategy. So the first thing we did on this was launch a new licensee scheme in 2008. And what we aimed with this is to make sure that brands and products we are promoting and spending our marketing spend on, and the producers' money on, are actually got the right levels of British wool. So we launched a new licensee scheme. We did new branding at the top. What we found is that there was a lot of brands claiming to use British wool, when actually when we looked into it, the levels of British wool that we're using were small or much less than our criteria stipulates. So we introduced this new system. This tracks the wool usage from the end brand right back to the wool merchant. So we know with confidence what levels of wool are going in each of these individual brands' products. In the UK, we've got over 50 licensees across a broad range of products, so carpets, bedding, beds, apparel, insulation, things such as that. This is likely to increase as new product projects come to market. You might recognise some of the brands on the right-hand side. Some of them you may not. They're more niche, specialist brands, but they're all decent sized brands. And this really underpins all our activity. So we will only promote brands that have been through our licensee scheme. So we know hand on heart they've got the right levels of British wool in their products. So a key thing we also wanted to do was target the consumer. And we started a new social media consumer direct channel 3 years ago. So we use Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The main aims of our consumer social media is to educate consumers why they should be buying British wool products and at the same time promoting the British wool brand. Promote brands using British wool to our licensees. So this is a big part of what we do on our social media channels. Promote where the products are available, whether that be on the high street or via online channels. And also, importantly, and this has come to light in the last couple of years, educate consumers about farming matters. There's quite a lot of ignorance out there about a lot of farming matters, such as shearing, animal welfare, and climate change. And wool and sheep farmers generally in the UK sometimes get a bad press. And we're there to really defend that and put the facts right and get to consumers and tell them what the actual situation is. So if you look at our social media total following, it's about 90,000, but across our entire network, so including the farmers, we've got well over 100,000 followers. That's quite a strong base for us to target messaging with, to do promotions to, and to try and increase sales of British wool rich products. And this is an example of some of the posts. So the one on the far left is promoting some new carpet display stands we've recently launched and trying to drive footfall into that retailer to look for British wool products. The ones in the second column is Wool Week. So Wool Week was the past 2 weeks. It goes on for 2 weeks now, Wool Week, but it's still called Wool Week, whereby we're promoting brands, and we had a number of promotions that we were running with those brands. And by all accounts, early indications are they've done quite well. Also educating people about British sheep and just a bit of information, a bit of interesting facts, and also why people should be buying British wool products as well. I'd urge everybody, if they're interested in British wool and seeing what we are up to follow our social media channels, because we do post a lot of things on there, most of the activity we're actually up to. We also do quite a lot of product displays and point of sale. So we recently launched the British Wool Collection carpet display stands, which you see as the main image. This is launched in 10 retailers initially on a trial basis, and depending on the results and the feedback from the retailers and also feedback from consumers, we'll be rolling this out to a larger audience. So what this does, it shows our British wool licensees. So at the moment, we've got 3 licensees in the UK, Alternative Flooring, Brockway and Brinton's on the carpets. And this stand really is there to say, if you want to support British farmers, if you want to 100% make sure you're supporting British farmers, then buy carpets from this product stand. And we've done training and we do an online activity to try and drive footfall and traffic to these retailers. I think this is crucial because still nowadays, most carpets are bought in a retail environment. It's not the easiest product in the world to buy. You need to get your rooms measured up. So it's important that we take that on board and we launch these kind of in-store point of sale offers and display stands to create consumer awareness about British wool. We also offer point of sale to all our licensees to help us British wool brand and also drive sales. So across bedding, beds and other different products that British wool goes into. And prior to COVID, so it seems a long time ago now and a very different place that we used to live in, but prior to COVID, we were attending 2 major consumer shows every year, Grand Designs and the Home Building and Renovation Show. These shows are excellent because there's a lot of consumers with a lot of disposable income, and these consumers are interested in things like the environment And obviously wool ticks that box massively, and it's something that we've been promoting quite heavily for the past 2 years. Again, at the exhibition, similar aims to social media really: promote the British wool brand, educate consumers about why they should be buying British wool, and also promote the brands using British wool, so our licensees. So you can see we do a lot of work with our licensees and for our licensees, and that's to encourage them to use more British wool and launch more British wool rich products. Another area we use for targeting the consumer is our website. So our web traffic has grown 40% in the past 12 months. On average, we get about 10,000 unique visitors per month to our website. And of those visitors, we estimate about 20% are consumers, and this is growing quite quickly. So if you went back 2 years, I reckon it would be low single digits of consumers coming to our website. But we are creating interest out there from a consumer perspective. And this is shown in sort of the traffic going to the website. For 2021, we're looking at launching a new e-commerce website hosted by British Wool that sells our licensees' products direct to consumers. So that'll be done on a drop ship basis by the licensees, but we'll take payment and we'll make sure that British Wool is pushed through that website. So it gives us a really good opportunity to drive British Wool rich sales online. So we can do targeted advertising and things such as that to drive sales of British wool.
Great, and we've just got a question come through. Is there a limit on the size of business that can become a licensee?
No, we'll do it. There's no minimum quantities. The only thing, as long as it meets the criteria for the licensee scheme, we'll deal with anybody really. So we've got smaller licensees. So smaller mom and pop kind of shop licensees, and we've got larger licensees such as Brinton's Carpets, who are supplying carpets globally. So no, there's no limit on that.
Brilliant, thank you.
And finally, China. So we opened an office in Shanghai in October 2018. So China is by far the biggest processor of wool globally. Most of the Australian and the New Zealand clip goes to China for processing. Whereas only 25% of British wool goes to China. Most of British wool remains in the UK, about 50%. So the UK is our biggest market. But what we're doing in China is we're looking for new users of British wool, and we're also targeting the M brand. So we're going to the M brand to sell the British wool story, sell our marketing value add that we can do. And in 2019, we launched a range of duvets with a leading Chinese manufacturer called Lovo. And we sold approximately 30,000 duvets. And on this, we made significantly more profit over the current auction price. So it was extra value, extra money for producers. And all of this kind of extra value that we get through these sales is returned directly to the producers. We're currently working on projects for tweed, rugs, interior products, and also knitwear. The Chinese market's recovered quite quickly, to be fair, but we are still having a delay in a lot of the new products because of COVID, because of the knock-on effects of COVID. So as well as China, we're working on a number of new products development projects in the UK to increase demand for British wool. So we're working with 2 leading UK universities looking at brand new usage of wool. So this is totally different, not what your wool's being used for at the moment. This isn't an immediate solution to the current situation because this is going to take a little bit of time to develop, but over time this should create new demand and in turn help drive prices upwards. New carpet ranges in the UK, we're working on a few new carpet ranges with carpet manufacturers at the moment on new products to come to market in the next 6 to 12 months. And we're also working with a number of private organisations who are looking at new uses for wool. So similar to the university projects, these are looking at brand new innovative projects to use British wool. I can't disclose what we're working on at the moment on any of these projects, unfortunately, because we're under confidentiality contracts. But rest assured, when these start coming to market and coming to fruition, we'll be shouting from the rooftops to let everybody know what's happening and where British wool's going. So thank you for listening. I hope you found that useful and interesting. I don't know if there's any further questions. Yeah, I think they're coming in now. Do you want to...
Yes, I've got a couple. So somebody's asked which breeds of sheep provide the best wool. I think
there's no such thing as a best wool. So the best wool for carpets is not the best wool for knitwear, is not the best wool for apparel. So there's no real best wools as such. It's just different wools have different uses. I mean, different end products.
Okay, just got some more coming through. So got a question. So the recent insulation campaign has been a knee-jerk reaction to bad market conditions, but wool insulation does make sense. When more normal market conditions return, hopefully, could wool insulation become a more important part of the wool market mix?
It could potentially. I mean, we're already working with the leading UK supplier of wool insulation, a company called Thermofleece, and we have been doing for some time. At the moment, it's quite a niche product, but we do hope through the noise that's being made at government levels that they may start considering putting this in some of the public buildings. I know the Welsh government is committed to looking at wool for the facilities management team, and we've got a meeting with those guys in a couple of weeks' time. So you never know, really. I mean, we'll be pushing it as much as we can with government. It's been a really successful petition that started. And, you know, we're fully behind that. And anything that's going to create more demand for British wool, clearly, we're going to back it 100%.
So another few questions coming in. So we've got, given that farmers are being encouraged to tap into the local markets, what are you doing to help us find new markets?
Everything I've just been talking about. So, you know, the new product development things that we're working on with the universities, with the private companies, with the carpet companies, the Chinese market, you know, we're trying to tap into a number of different opportunities. We've got to do this on scale though, because we handle, you know, 25 million kilos approximately, and that's a lot of fleeces to be selling. You know, it's probably 11, 12 million fleeces. We have to look at opportunities of scale that benefits all producers and not just maybe one or two smaller producers.
Just while you're on that one, Graham, you mentioned about the new projects. Is there any, I know it's confidential, but is there any sort of time frame, you know, when we can expect? Is it a 2-year project?
I mean, yeah, the university ones, it's blue sky new product development. So some of it won't work, you know, inevitably when you do new products and you do different things with wool or whatever product it is, it doesn't always work. But we are working on quite a few different projects. It's difficult. It's really difficult to say, to be honest. It could be it could be a couple of years, it could be 3 years. I think some will come out quicker than others. Some might be longer term projects. But we are getting, the good thing is we are getting funding for these projects. So the universities so far, we've had a couple of funding granted already. So there's obviously interest there in terms of people funding it. They think it's a good idea. There's some great ideas, but unfortunately I can't tell you what they are. I'd love to tell you what they are.
So kind of a few here. So do those looking to become a licensee have to purchase their wool through British Wool, or can it be home produced? Can they use the wool on themselves, I suppose? Yeah,
most licensees would buy it through British Wool, but I know we do a scheme with certain people that grow their own wool and then send it in to be graded. I just if it's an individual asking the question who wants to do it themselves, just get in touch with us. If you email the email that's on the screen, so mail@britishwool.org.uk, and then we can talk you through the process, and we can tell you how you go about becoming a licensee.
So I've just captured this one that's gone into the chat. So you said that 25% of UK wool goes to China, 50% stays in the UK. Where does the other 25% go mainly?
So about 15% European market. We do in China, Japan. We've also got a Japanese office, maybe takes 4 or 5%, and then the rest will just be, there's not a lot left, to be fair. So.
And we've had one here. What supply have you had throughout the 2020 period compared to previous years?
Supply from producers, it's down, to be fair. You know, a lot of farmers are keeping hold of the wool this year to see how the market pans out. I think it's fair to say. So yeah, we are reasonably significantly down, to be fair, this season, at least 10% down on last year's numbers. By all accounts, we're not losing this to the competition. You know, this is farmers holding on to the wool to see how it goes for next season.
I've got quite a few more coming in now. So does someone wanting to purchase British wool have to attend the auction room or use an agent? If so, would an online auction platform open the market up to purchases from across the world?
So we've got established buyers in the UK. We can't open it up to an online purchasing system across the world because it just wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. We've got big buyers that buy from the auction. Financially, we couldn't do that either. You know, we can't offer terms and things to larger buyers and whatnot. So it wouldn't really work. You do really have to be in the auction. There's an agency buyer that can buy on behalf of people. And there's also the wool merchants in the UK who are already set up to handle this kind of business.
So will Brexit affect your marketing strategy?
Oh, it depends. Who knows what's going on with Brexit? Not massively, because a lot of the wool's in the UK. So if you look at the UK carpet perspective, a lot of that's manufactured in the UK. So it shouldn't really make a huge amount of difference. What Brexit is doing, though, it's harming consumer confidence because there's so many unknowns, so many uncertain elements that nobody knows where we're going, really. And I think COVID combined with Brexit, there's just so much uncertainty out there for consumer confidence. And consumer confidence is not good for any business. It's certainly not good for businesses that are selling carpets and things such as that.
Sorry, Graham, we're jumping around a little bit, but so we've got what is being done to make sure the environmental plastics issue turns into greater demand for wool products?
So we're promoting this to consumers, you know, via our consumer marketing strategy. We're also trying to lobby the government as well to look at things such as putting tariffs on plastic products. You know, it's a massive picture. This British Wool alone can't tackle this on our own. But we are lobbying the government. You know, we've been speaking to the government about using British Wool in public buildings via the petition that was started. So we are in dialogue with the government, but these things do take time. And obviously the government's got a lot of priorities at the moment. But what we can do is just keep on pushing that message to consumers. We can do it for our point of sale, and we can also do it for our licensees. So we've got quite a big reach. If you look at our social media and our brand, and then you broaden it out to all our licensees, that's a lot of people and a lot of consumers that can be reached. And we are getting these messages out to consumers. The NSA are as well. All bodies are, the NFU. Everybody's doing their bit to get this information out to consumers. And I think, to be fair, there's a massive awareness about this from consumers anyway.
So we've got here, are your licensees asking for higher quality wool than British Wool is able to offer? Are they particularly demanding of fleece characteristics and differentiation of quality fibres?
Not hugely. I mean, there are companies in the UK that would use merino. So if it's next to skin clothing, you would tend to use merino because it's a finer micron wool than British Wool. But again, British Wool is better for things like bedding because it bounces back into shape and it allows your body to breathe naturally. Carpets, you know, you wouldn't use merino in a carpet. British Wool is best for carpets because of the weather we have over here. It's quite hearty fleeces, and the carpets maintain their appearance for much longer. So no, but to be fair, we can't get down to the microns that merino is because of the climate in the UK. It's very, very difficult to do that.
So what impact would it have if we saw a significant number of flocks go to wool shedding breeds? Would it help the market or reduce our scale and cause problems?
I don't think there's a great deal of this going on at the moment, from what I understand, and it would take quite a few years to get that bred out, I guess. It depends what happened to the wool. If the wool was still coming in, then that would be okay. But if the wool wasn't, then clearly we'd have less wool to sell. If we've got less British wool to sell, it won't become a type anymore, and people will start using different types of wool, and then British wool will just disappear over a period of time.
So what is being done about the welfare concerns around wool? PETA have been quite damaging for the use of natural fibres, especially wool.
Yeah, I think PETA have done more damage on a global scale than in the UK. We did have the incident on the Channel 4 News a while back, but that seemed to blow over. And to be fair, when you looked at the consumer sentiment on that, so when PETA were on This Morning and programs such as that, the consumers on the whole really did a backlash against it and said, you know, it's not cruel. People know in this country it's not cruel to shear a sheep. It's a welfare issue, and we're trying to get that message across to consumers. We don't want to take PETA on head-to-head because it gives them more oxygen, and that's never a good strategy. I know the Australians tried to do that a few years ago and it did backfire, and they advised us not to do that. But all we can do is get that message out to the consumer. As I said, when there is anything on PETA in the UK, we monitor the social media chat, and generally speaking, whether it be farmers or whether it be just normal consumers, they're defending it very, very well, to be fair. But we will step in where we need to.
Do you think fast fashion will decrease in its popularity in the future when the consumer are becoming more environmentally educated, and how is British Wool addressing this, or how can we address this?
I'd like to think so, you know, for all our sakes and for all our children and our grandchildren's sakes, because, you know, it's just not good for the environment. It's going to take time, I think. The reality is it will take time. It's a massive shift to where people are at the moment with disposable fashion. I think, you know, there's big movements on this. There's a lot of noise on this. And I think inevitably it will happen. British Wool, what we're doing on this, you know, again, we're getting a message across to the consumer. We've only got so much of a marketing budget. We haven't got millions and millions of pounds to be spending on TV advertising. What we can do is back certain campaigns and also get messaging out to consumers about why fast fashion is wrong. We also work with the Campaign for Wool. Well, the Campaign for Wool do a good job on a global basis. So they promote wool generally, so not just British wool, but all wool. And again, they help tackle PETA and also climate change and fast fashion and all these kind of things. It was a really good film that they did a few years ago with Alex James, who's the ex-lead singer of Blur. And it was fighting fast fashion or something like that. It was a really good, it's available on YouTube. I'd urge you to go and have a look. But that did really well in terms of addressing that and showing how wool could be used to address that issue.
Okay, so there's no more questions at the minute. So I don't know if anybody else has got any that they want to type into the Q&A section, or just maybe give it a minute, see if anything else comes through. But for quite a good range there.
There is always the option, obviously Graham's put up the mail@britishwool.org.uk email address. So if we have missed any questions or you suddenly think of one after the webinar, please feel free to drop that through to mail@britishwool, or if for some reason you've not recorded that, pop it through to our NSA's inquiries emails, and we can always forward it on to Graham, and I'm sure he can sort of direct it.
We're happy to answer any questions. We're totally open. Any questions anybody's got, more than happy to. Just one come through, I think.
Another one come through, yeah. So can you explain the role of the Campaign for Wool, please?
Okay, so the Campaign for Wool promotes wool on a global scale. So they promote different types of wool. So they promote wool in general. So it might be Australian, South African, British, New Zealand, wherever the wool's from, they'll promote wool. So they do a lot of PR events, maybe in London, and just getting a message across to the consumer. They've got quite a big social media following, again, trying to educate the consumer about why they should be buying wool generally. We work with them. We're one of the funders of the Campaign for Wool, and they do a good job of getting the message out to a wider audience, maybe than even we can reach.
Brilliant. And another one here, when do you anticipate a market recovery?
It's a difficult question. I mean, there's so many uncertainties at the moment with COVID and with whatnot. I think certain types of wool, so carpet wools, they're going to take a while to recover because the demand for contract carpets are going to be soft for quite some time. We see that, you know, that could take 18 months, 2 years to recover. Other types, so combing types, finer wools, going more into apparel and knitwear. We're seeing some recovery at the moment, but again, the prices are really, really low. You saw earlier the average price that was selling out at the auction. It's low 50s, low 50 pence. And that's just the price we're selling at an auction. That's not the return to the producer. It's going to take some time. It really is. And I suspect we'll have some ups and downs in the next 12 to 18 months with COVID until we really get a vaccine for this thing and we can start to live our lives normally. I think there's going to be one or two some slightly difficult times ahead, shall we say.
Okay. We haven't got any more come through just yet.
There's one question before that somebody asked about the electronic auctions, and just to say we've been running electronic auctions remotely since the start of the pandemic. Really, we had to do this because we wouldn't have been able to sell any wool. So we do electronic auctions where you don't have, where the buyers aren't in the room, they're bidding on an electronic basis. And if we'd not done that, that 1 million kilos of overhang we've got at the moment would be much, much higher. And we'll be in a lot worse predicament we're in at the moment.
Do you plan to continue those electronic auctions then going forward, even if COVID disappeared and we found a vaccine and we returned to the new normal?
To the new normal. It depends what the new normal looks like. Yeah.
Brilliant.
More questions come through there? Or?
Just a couple of thank you notes come through on the chat and the Q&A. Just
all right, thanks.
So that's. But I don't think. Oh, it might just be. Oh yes. Don't know if you. Have you got the Q&A there, Graham?
Just one sec. Well, that's not working on that screen. Well, not at the moment, no. It's
just our CEO Phil Stocker's throwing in some difficult questions in the background.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
well,
not at this time. No, we're not. No.
I think if that's most of the questions covered, I'd like to thank everyone for attending the webinar. A massive thank you to Graham and Laura for speaking and hosting the Q&A session as well. Big thanks to British Wool for sponsoring the event. We hope that you've all really enjoyed the session and there's many take-home messages. I don't know if Graham or Laura, you have anything else?
Just thanks for joining us. And as I said, if there's any questions that come to you after the session, then just drop us a line. We're more than happy to answer any questions. We're very open. And also just to stick with us, it's a difficult period, but what we do need is producers to stick with British Wool. We're your organisation, we're a farming cooperative, we're owned by the producers. And really the only way the wool prices are going to recover is through British Wool. So I would urge producers to stick by us in what are tough times, to be fair. Thanks for listening.
Lovely. Well, thanks again to all our members for your continued support. And just a little reminder, all the non-members watching, don't forget to check out our website for details on all the benefits of joining the National Sheep Association. And I hope everyone has a lovely evening. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.